We're back with another NFL divisional breakdown here on For Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. Today, we're going to do the NFC East. This will be our fourth divisional breakdown before we get to Week 1. Already did the AFC South, NFC South, and AFC East. So now it's time for the NFC East before we get to the last four divisions. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you want to go check out any of those other divisional breakdowns that we've already done, those are available in the content tab. And, of course, our daily videos, news around the league, reaction to big stories, some college football content. It's all available. It's all free. We're close to 2,000 subs. Let's make it happen. All right. We're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys here. And I think a lot of people view this as a make-or-break year for Dallas. It's clearly a pivotal year. They've won 12 games 3 years in a row, but have only won one playoff game in that 3-year stretch. Remember in 2020, was it 2022? 2021, they had the end of the game miscue where they ran a QB draw, were trying to go spike it against the 49ers, but they never handed the ball to the ref, couldn't get the playoff, and that was a disaster, lost that game by 6. The next year, they beat Tom Brady and Tampa Bay on the road, but that was an 8-9 Bucs team. Lost to the 49ers in the second round. Defense played well. Dak Prescott struggled. And then last year, Jordan Love and the Packers just dropped the hammer on Dallas. So to say the least, this team's under pressure. And don't take my word for it. They have not extended Mike McCarthy. Rarely do head coaches in the NFL coach out their contract without a new deal. That's the situation. As of filming this, Dak Prescott has not gotten a new deal. Could that change? Of course. There's been some chatter of an extension there. But you do wonder, is this a situation where Jerry Jones is just saying, I'm just going to play this out. If we make a deep run, bring everybody back. If not, we'll have to see what our options are after this season. Bill Belichick's out there. Maybe they reset at quarterback. Who knows? And I'll say this, and I did a full video on this. Jerry hasn't helped. And regardless of what his intentions were when he used the phrase, we're going to be all in next year, talking about this year, Dallas is dead last in cash spending, 32nd in the league, which is embarrassing regardless of what their long-term plans are at quarterback, etc. To be dead last when you're the most valuable franchise in sports, it's just embarrassing. Like there's no way to defend it. But at this point, there's not really any big moves out there. Could they, of course, commit to Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons long-term? Yes, but that's not adding to the core they had in place. So in other words, if they're going to break through, they're going to have to break through what they already got and what they've already had, a.k.a. a group that has not been good enough to turn it on in the postseason up to this point. Doesn't mean it can't happen, just means it hasn't up to this point. And to not attempt to improve the roster, I would think is a little bit disappointing if you're a Cowboys fan. So you kind of look at this team, it's like, still good, got a top 10 quarterback. Offensive line is solid. I don't like the running back situation, but they're going to be a pass-first team. To bring back Zeke is kind of a weak move, but that is what it is. Assuming CeeDee Lamb is playing, top 3, top 5 receiver. Jake Ferguson's a good tight end, but what if Lamb goes down, or what if his holdout extended into the season? Then you got real questions offensively. I think the defense will be pretty solid, even though they lost Dan Quinn. I think Mike Zimmer's a good replacement there. I expect this team to be in the playoffs again. It's going to come down to, can they break through? Can they win a playoff game or two and, potentially go on a run? We'll see. They haven't in recent years, despite being a 12-plus win team 3 years in a row. Feels like a vital year for the Dallas Cowboys in the Dak Prescott era. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles here. Fly, Eagles, fly. We'll see if they're flying this year. They did 2 years ago all the way to the Super Bowl. Last year they did en route to a 9-0, 10-0 start, and then just completely limped to the finish line. I think it was 10-0 and then lost 6 out of 7 to finish 11-6, and then ultimately lost to Tampa Bay in the wild card round. Really got hammered, just wasn't even close. And it just got ugly, and it got ugly fast. So can they bounce back this year? Remember, something of note, especially for any bettors out there, no team in the NFC East has won the division 2 years in a row since the 03-04 Eagles. So if you think Dallas is the favorite, doesn't mean they can't do it, but the history of the last 2 decades would suggest that Dallas would not win it this year, just based on that lone fact. Philly made some pretty drastic changes. They didn't fire Nick Sirianni, but they did change coordinators, and Howie Roseman had input on those decisions. Kellen Moore comes in as the offensive coordinator. This will be his third team in 3 years. Dallas moved on last year as McCarthy took on play calling, so he went to L.A. Herbert was banged up some of the year, didn't really work out. Now he lands in Philadelphia. We'll see what he can do with Jalen Hurts as he replaces Brian Johnson. Vic Fangio replaces Matt Patricia / Sean Desai, two guys who called plays last year. Patricia was obviously a disaster. And listen, coaching has been a big discussion for this team because it was revealed not too long ago that essentially, and I'm giving you the cliff notes, Jalen Hurts lost respect for Nick Sirianni last year. Didn't trust his football acumen, and that's a lot to come back from. It sounds like they've spent time on trying to repair that relationship, and the vibes are high in training camp. Jalen Hurts has only thrown one pick in camp, this and that. That's a lot to come back from, man. When you lose respect for the guy in charge at any company you work for, is that going to change? Now, if Jalen and Kellen Moore can vibe, and if that thing works, and Sirianni's truly just a CEO, I'm sure they can get past it, but he's still the head coach. Like, that's a tricky one to kind of decipher through, and quite frankly, it kind of makes you wonder, why didn't they just fire Sirianni? I think the answer is the year before they made the Super Bowl, and he's won a lot of games, but when your quarterback and head coach are not on the same even if it's a defensive head coach, that's a lot to overcome in the National Football League because that relationship is absolutely vital. Look, this team's loaded. They're very talented. I think a lot of this is going to come down to the combination of Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts. Kellen's under a microscope. The last couple of years have not gone great for him either. He's trying to rebuild his stock a little bit. He's obviously a talented young play caller, has a lot of experience up to this point. But Jalen Hurts needs to bounce back. Did not play well down the stretch last year. If they're winning, all will be well. If not, the heat is going to turn up on the key figures in this organization, starting with Nick Sirianni and then Jalen Hurts. Kellen Moore's right there in the mix of that as well. I think from a pure talent standpoint, this team is the most talented in the division. Will they win the division? Stay tuned to the end of the episode. Not so giant. I'm not very high on the New York Giants this year, as I think the consensus around the league is this is viewed as one of the worst teams entering 2024, and the biggest reason is the elephant in the room, and that is that Daniel Jones just isn't very good. Daniel Jones tricked Brian Daboll, more so probably Joe Shane and John Mara, that he can be a franchise quarterback 2 years ago. They overachieved. They made the playoffs. The best game of his career was in a playoff win over the Vikings when he did play pretty well. But when you really rewound and look at that whole season, he threw for 15 touchdowns. He was not special. He was a game manager, and they paid him high-level quarterback money. Now, he's not making 55 like the top guys are, but he's making $40+ million per year and has the 5th highest cap hit this year. And let's face it, everyone in that building knows he's not very good. Now, Malik Nabers can come out and say he's a dog. Different guys can say he's this and that. I'm not questioning his work ethic. I'm not questioning his leadership. I'm questioning his play. We're entering year 6, and if you say we still don't know what he is, you know what he is at that point, and that is a fringe starter at best. He threw 2 ugly interceptions in a preseason game. They're stuck with him this year. That's the issue. When they didn't draft a quarterback, they're stuck with him as the starter because with the amount of money he makes in his cap hit situation, they can't cut him. They can, but they can't really. Now, they'll probably cut him next year unless he's just unbelievable this year. But that's the elephant in the room, and it's an elephant that's not going away because they don't really have options. They can try Drew Lock. They can try Tommy DeVito. You might as well play Daniel, though, at least to start the year, because you paid him and you're stuck with his contract, and the other 2 guys clearly aren't the answer either. I will say this about the Giants. I think their front 4 is one of the best in football. They've got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. I like Azeez Ojulari as well. I don't like the secondary. Deonte Banks doesn't seem to have taken a step forward. He got completely shredded by the Jets in practice the other day. They really need him to step up. But the front 4, linebackers are pretty good. Bobby Okereke is solid. So the defense, I think, can keep them in some of these games, but I just don't think you have enough firepower offensively. I love Nabers, but I don't think he's a fit with Daniel Jones' play style, which is mostly dink and dunk. Same with Jalen Hyatt. He's viewed as a vertical threat, and Jones doesn't throw the ball downfield. I know they've been trying it in the preseason, but it has not led to good results. I think this team's in big trouble this year. New era in Washington. Can the new-look Commanders surprise some people this year? And I don't even necessarily mean being a high-level playoff team, but could they enter December with a puncher's chance of making the postseason? Could they, be one of these fun, entertaining 7-win teams that beats a team or two that they probably shouldn't? Maybe they split with Dallas or Philadelphia and, make some noise in the division. I think it's possible, and obviously there's a lot of hype around Jayden Daniels. Since training camp started, and really since they drafted him, all reports out of Washington have been pretty positive. If it weren't for Caleb Williams, the hype around this guy would be even larger. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He's mobile. Say what you want about Cliff Kingsbury, but a lot of it is just get the ball out and identify the matchup. That's something Jayden did well at LSU in the quick game. His strengths at LSU his last year were 3 things. 1, deep ball. 2, ability to run. He's not really a make a bunch of people miss in the pocket, then throw downfield. He's kind of a, if I escape, I can take off and get 20, 30 yards type of guy. And 3, he operated in the quick game really well. Quick decisions, accurate. I think Cliff Kingsbury is probably going to do a lot of that stuff and then use him in the QB run game and then take shots downfield when opportunities present themselves. And look, adults are back in the room. There's credibility back in the building. Dan Snyder's out. Josh Harris is in. He brings new energy as an owner. Adam Peters comes from the 49ers organization. I like that hire as GM. Dan Quinn, I don't think he's an A-level head coach, but I think he's a B. I think he can, again, the word credibility. He's got a good reputation. The defense is at least going to be competitive from day one. I don't think they have elite-level talent defensively at this point. Jonathan Allen's a good anchor, a good veteran to lean on early on. They signed some decent players in free agency, but could it be a top 20 unit? Could Quinn kind of have them 5 or 6 spots higher than they should be just due to his coaching style? I think that's possible. I think my take on Washington is they're probably a year away. They need more wide receiver help after Terry McLaurin. They traded Jahan Dotson to Philly because that wasn't working out. The offensive line probably needs another piece or 2 long term. Defense is young, but I like their coaching staff. Cliff has question marks, but I think he can make it work with Jayden. And just having an owner that's not a disgrace, I think in this case does help. So, again, I look at Washington. I doubt they're a playoff team, but I think they could at least make some noise and, sneak up on some people this year. I think they'll be better than New York. I think Philly wins the division. I don't think Dallas repeats. No team has in over 20 years. Dallas does make the wild card, though. They get a wild card berth. We'll see if they can make a run this year. And then Commanders are a fun, entertaining third-place team. And the Giants, I think, they're in the mix for the number 1 pick. I think the Giants, Patriots, and Carolina Panthers are 3 teams to watch out for in the mix for the number 1 pick. Maybe the Raiders are in that discussion as well. We'll, of course, get to the AFC West as we go. I think we'll actually do that next. AFC West, our next division here on 4 Verts as we break down every single division leading up to week 1. So be sure to subscribe. My name is Harrison Graham. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Want free videos on a daily basis? We got you covered. Peace.